The court appointed a woman to represent my daughter's best interests during my custody case. I found out 8 months later that she'd been having dinner with my ex-husband's attorney every Thursday night for 2 years. The judge called her report the most thorough he'd seen in 20 years. I called it a script somebody else wrote. I'm Diane Carver, 41, a registered nurse in Nashville. My divorce from Paul was the kind that starts quiet and turns into something else entirely once money and a child are involved. Our daughter Lily was 7 when we filed. The court appointed a guardian ad litem named Sandra Morse, a licensed clinical social worker with an impressive resume and a calm, professional manner that made everyone in that courtroom feel like the situation was being handled by exactly the right person. Sandra interviewed Lily 3 times, visited both homes twice, and submitted a 40-page recommendation that Paul receive primary physical custody, citing my unpredictable work schedule as a nursing professional, and what she described as Lily's expressed preference to live primarily with her father. Lily was 7. I lost primary custody. Paul got Lily 4 nights a week. I got 3, alternating weekends. And the particular kind of grief that comes from driving away from your daughter's school on a Wednesday, knowing she's going home with someone else. I didn't suspect Sandra immediately. I suspected Paul's attorney, a man named Glenn Whitfield, who'd been aggressive in ways that felt almost too precisely aimed, like he knew which questions to ask Sandra before she submitted her report. Like he understood exactly what language would land hardest with our specific judge. The crack showed up through the most ordinary thing imaginable. My friend Carolyn mentioned offhandedly one evening that she'd seen a man matching Glenn's description at Napoli's, a restaurant near her gym, with the same woman 3 Thursday nights in a row. She described her late 40s, dark blazer, always ordered the same pasta, always left by 8:30. Sandra Morse had mentioned Napoli's by name during our second home visit, when she'd admired a photo of Italy on my kitchen wall and said it was her favorite place in Nashville for linguine. I drove home, sat at my kitchen table, and thought about it for 3 days before I did anything. Then I hired a private investigator named Terry Oakes. Terry confirmed 7 Thursday dinners between Sandra and Glenn over 4 months, 2 of them during the active period of my custody evaluation, while Sandra was still conducting home visits and drafting her recommendation. 7 dinners. Not one disclosure to the court. A guardian ad litem is a neutral officer of the court. Any undisclosed personal relationship with either party's attorney is a mandatory conflict of interest violation. Sandra had said nothing. Glenn had said nothing. I took everything to a family law attorney named Patricia Hale, who specialized in gal misconduct. In one conversation, she told me everything I needed to know. We had grounds to vacate the custody order entirely. Sandra would lose her certification, and Glenn faced a bar complaint. The documentation held up. The dates held up. The overlap between their dinners and Sandra's home visits was provable in a table with timestamps. I asked Patricia one more question before we filed. Did she think Paul knew? She set down her pen. The report was too precisely targeted not to have had input from someone who knew your weaknesses going in. Whether Paul asked for that directly or just benefited from Glenn providing it, that's a harder line to prove. But yes, I think he knew something was off about how clean his case was running. I didn't file immediately. I called Sandra first. Steady voice. No anger. I told her I knew about Napoli's. I told her I had documentation covering 2 dinners during my active evaluation period. I told her I was meeting with Patricia the following week. Then I waited. Sandra called Glenn within the hour. Glenn, apparently sensing what was coming, had already quietly referred the post-divorce portion of Paul's case to a different attorney 2 weeks earlier, a detail that now looked less like a scheduling conflict and more like a man putting distance between himself and a case about to explode. He wasn't fast enough. I saw Glenn once more before the hearing. He was standing outside the courthouse the morning Patricia filed our motion, talking on his phone, and he looked up and saw me coming up the steps. He didn't speak, neither did I, but he watched me walk through those doors the way a man watches something he can't stop anymore. And I felt, for the first time since the original ruling, like the ground was finally solid under my feet again. At the hearing, Glenn's attorney submitted a written response on his behalf. He didn't appear in person, which the judge noted on the record with visible displeasure. Sandra's attorney acknowledged the relationship and stated she should have disclosed it. Language carefully chosen to admit just enough. The judge wasn't interested in careful language. He vacated the custody order entirely, ordered a new evaluation with a different gal, and referred both Sandra and Glenn to the Tennessee Board of Professional Responsibility for separate disciplinary proceedings. Paul sat 2 rows behind me during the hearing. I didn't turn around once. His new attorney negotiated a temporary joint arrangement while the new evaluation runs. Paul hasn't called me directly since the morning after I told Patricia to reach out to his side, when he'd called trying to discuss Lily's schedule in the careful voice of a man who'd just been told to make something go away before it became official. It was already official. Glenn's bar complaint is pending. Sandra's gal certification was suspended within 30 days, ending the professional identity she'd spent 15 years building. The new gal, Dr. Carol Simmons, has met with Lily twice. She asks different questions, warmer ones, the kind that actually sound like someone trying to understand a child rather than build a case around one. Last Tuesday, Lily climbed into my car after school, buckled herself in, and said, completely unprompted, Mom, I told Dr. Simmons I want more sleepovers at your house. I kept my eyes on the road until I was sure I could speak without my voice breaking. Yeah? I said. Yeah, she said, and went back to her book. That's the part Sandra never put in her 40 pages. The part Glenn never thought to use against me. The part that was always true, even when the wrong people were deciding what mattered. Lily already knew where she wanted to be. It just took the right person finally asking her the right way.